right?
Maybe you could just move the other place.
Nice.
Okay.
I'd
Wanna
like
sit here?
You should sit down as near at the edge as you can. Not too,
No,
not
it's
too
all-
near, please. Da brauchen wir keine Aufhellung mehr, Horst.
Nee.
Würde ich bitten, genauso zu verfahren, ihn mal ganz drin zu haben, auch sitzen, dass wir einmal in der ganzen
Rolling.
You told me you're a downtown kid. Can you tell me in which area of town you grew up? Since when you recognized consciously what people were wearing on the streets, and at that time, what did it look like?
I don't think I really recognized per se street fashion till I started working at Stussy, like mid-'80s, because before that I was just a kid that kind of wore whatever my parents bought me. Not that I said I didn't.
Sorry.
I basically wanted you tell me what you saw as soon as you looked at people. It doesn't have to be. For me, street fashion is what people.
Right, of course.
But you would have to tell me what part of town you grew up in. Maybe also where it's located and what kind of people live with you. Just the helicopter. Tell me about the place where you grew up and what you saw as soon as you consciously saw people.
I grew up in Manhattan, but the interesting thing about Manhattan is you'd never see the same type of person due to it's a city. All day, no matter where you are, there's an influx of people from out of this, either outer boroughs or uptown, downtown. Don't have a great recollection of street fashion in the city growing up. I mean, it was the end of, I guess, what we'd call hippie clothing, then went through the disco scene. When I was a kid, I never saw punk clothing. I didn't really see that until I looked at pictures 10 years later, just because that was too concentrated in downtown on the Lower East Side, whatever. And then going through the early 80s, you notice to actually emerge a proper street fashion, or the acknowledgement of there is a certain flavor on the street, as opposed to just a young generation wearing things, because I'm sure, as we know, that's gone on since the 50s. And when I really started paying attention to it was going out to clubs at night, because at night that's all it's about is street fashion. There's nothing else but it. It's people going out to clubs, dressing up for their little clique. And in the 80s, going to clubs, you saw all kinds of people. They weren't specific. There wasn't a rap club and a punk rock or new wave club. It was just one club, big place, lots of floors, lots of DJs. So you kind of, even though you're in your own little group of people, there was punk rock, disco, kind of people that had no clue on what they were wearing. Then the rap thing slowly started to come downtown. The music was before it, because you had Sugar Hill Gang, Run DMC, Curtis Blow, really kind of important ground rap, but there was no fashion, because it wasn't, the outer boroughs were still the outer boroughs. We didn't ever see what that looked like. And towards the end of the 80s, you got certain people started throwing parties at Danceteria, like there was Def Jam parties, and you'd get all these acts actually showing up. And that was kind of, that was the end of their Lee kind of stay pressed jeans, BVD shirts, Kangols. Gold chains were just starting, but rap wasn't really a fashion, because it was kind of the end of the gang look and the beginning of just buying. They were buying their own clothes, putting it together. A few years later, you had that whole Dapper Dan craze of like Eric B. and Rakim wearing custom-made fake Louis Vuitton suits, and I think that became like a rap fashion, as ludicrous as it might seem. That was something that they embraced, and you saw in videos, on album covers. And that was 85, 86, when rap was really strong, if not the strongest it ever was. Then that slowed off, and rap started to become more mainstream, where they were buying Nike, Adidas, Polo. I can't remember all the name brands now, it's been such a blur. But name brand identification became really important, where that logo meant that it cost a lot of money, or it was hard to get, or you became part of the team, or part of the group, or part of the gang. And it's really kind of just never ended. It's gone through ups and downs of different companies, where it's, I mean, you'll see people on the street and you'll know the last time they bought clothes. And if you're super cool, it was last week. Not that I'm for that whole thing, but the marketing and merchandising of music and clothing and street fashion, the market caught up to the street, leave it that way. Even though they're always a season behind, they acknowledge it and try to deal with it.
Sorry, it would be nice if you don't move.
Well, I was a bit young to really comment on it, but it seemed like the gang style was based on the gang jacket. I mean, maybe that's just me watching too many movies as a kid. And the rap style slowly evolved, where you didn't necessarily wear your name on your sleeve. You evolved it. I don't think the style was that much different, but there was lack of a kind of funny word on the back of your jacket. And then the style, funny enough, words got back involved in it, where you started seeing Nike or Adidas or Louis Vuitton or Gucci, and that logo became, you wanted to be identified with something. And that's also, even Stüssy's guilty of that with our logo. Even though we've tried to leave it, people, they want to be part of the team or part of the company. They want to feel like something.
What is a gang jacket?
Gang jackets to me, which again, don't quote me on this because I was never in a gang and I'm too young to really appreciate them, was basically what you'd call your colors, which had your gang painted on the back or some kind of applique, that if someone was wearing it, you knew they were in that gang. No different than in LA with the blue and the red thing. Except theirs, I don't know if they seem a bit more color coded. They might be a bit more aesthetic than we are.
Okay, and oh Gott, jetzt habe ich meinen Faden verloren. Jetzt, no, I lost my thread. No, right, I know. It's the baggy style has been very important for streetwear, street fashion. Where did the baggy style actually come from?
I'm not sure the baggy style actually came from. I think there's two schools of thought. One is it's just the opposite of tight kind of business suits, and the other, people say it comes from jail, where it was kind of, I guess they don't custom make or tailor jail clothes that well, and things are just worn a bit low and more comfortable. I'm not exactly sure which the truth is, but it's somewhere in between the two, I'm sure.
Okay. What about female street style? Because you just said Stussy was a male-orientated company, but still you have female clothes. And can you tell me how the female style developed its own direction in the streetwear label?
Right. Well, for streetwear, I mean, when you went to clubs, for the most part, the female counterpart to the male downtown person was more fashionable, more able to be fashionable, where guys that kind of wore suits everyone thought were a hairdresser or like makeup artist or something. It just wasn't as kind of rough, let's say. So the female counterpart didn't really need the streetwear as much. Where in the last few years it's developed, where you do see more women involved in actual sportswear, or they're like X-Girls come about, which is like, to me, a new company, but definitely the real thing. But now we're in a later day where that's kind of a little facet, where that's not the rap streetwear, it's more of a downtown kind of wafy streetwear. And the urban kind of archetypal homegirl streetwear would be gold earrings, rugby shirt, jeans, and funny sneakers, much like the male counterpart. But again, you'll see it's hard to comment on that now because we're so late into streetwear that each group of people would have their own male and female counterpart.
What about the accessories? Can you say something about streetwear accessories? What's important there?
I guess the main streetwear accessory would be go down a list between the cap, sunglasses, and backpack. I don't think there's even need for anything else. Those are the accessories. If you're outside of New York, if you're like kind of in a suburban streetwear where you'd obviously have a car with like a sound system, but they don't count because they don't live in the city.
Okay. What about coming back to Stussy again? What's coming up in your collection in the next season?
Looking ahead at Stussy, the collections are becoming proper collections where we're taking, I don't want to say direction from the big boys, meaning the big boys of fashion, but we have to become more serious because they're becoming better than they were. And we also have to separate our stuff from the younger streetwear companies because we need to survive on more than t-shirts and baseball hats. And even though we've always made more than that, we have to be recognized now as a proper clothing company.
Okay. How does this in your company work when you design a new collection from beginning to start? You have the ideas and then you have the clothes. What happens in between?
The collections start from a few different people with ideas. It comes to basically a drawing board, for lack of a better description. Sit down for a few weeks or days with it, put it together. Then the real gap comes in time where you have to have a crystal ball, because after that day, you're 6 months out on production samples. So basically, I just finished today, fall was finished, and I'm starting spring, which I won't have my samples on for 3 months, won't be in stores for 9 months. So there's a big gap of time.
Just a second. What it is wearing right now, the functional aspects of it, the color, why you like it?
The color aspects of it, just because it's I mean, purely preposterous. It's just you couldn't get something brighter. And I guess years of wearing black or white T-shirts, just gotten a bit bored of it. The functional aspects are just weatherproof. It's the first time I've ever spent a lot of money on clothing, but actually feel like I got something out of it, as opposed to looking a certain way. Just the looks are, I might as well be in a cartoon. They're just absurd. But it works. If I'm snowboarding, it works. Mountain biking, just walking around. And it's kind of nice to wear something that does do something, gives a little something back to you.
So you do a lot of sport?
Well, those like fairly active. And also just walking home from the kind of supermarket, it might start raining, you never know. So it's kind of nice to be prepared for things.
One more question about street style and influences. We've now talked about sportswear and about workwear. What about the military style?
I'm a big fan of military only in kind of, big fan of camouflage and big fan of like cargo pants. But military is difficult because when you get besides that, like jackets with epaulets don't interest me, badges don't interest me. And it's much more limited than you'd care to be, even though every country has their own kind of fatigue and whatnot. In the end, they're all very similar. And there are nice pocket details and kind of nice stitching details. But I think the pants are where I'm truly interested in as far as military clothing.
So what? Okay, we'll start with jeans. What comes to your mind when you think?
Just Levi's. There's not even anything else. Just no logical reason. There's just Levi's, and anything else is just a mere copy.
What is it that makes jeans so fascinating or so truly it's always in style?
They're the easiest thing to wear. They last forever, and in the end, just Levi's has the best denim. There's just nothing else like it. The red tab. Those are jeans.
What about t-shirts?
White ones.
Why are t-shirts are something that can be changed a lot? Can you say something about that maybe?
Well, the white ones for the basic T-shirt to be worn under something, but they're a walking message. For $20, you can say everything or say nothing, be a genius or be an idiot. It kind of spans the gamut, and the old ones are kind of cool and the new ones are cool. There's a T-shirt for everyone.
That's right. What about sneakers?
Nike, just from sheer design. They just make a better sneaker than everyone else. Their advertising's brilliant. Their labeling's. Sorry.
Why are so many people love to wear sneakers?
They're comfortable.
And what else?
I mean, I should hope comfort's the first thing, but it's also kind of like the T-shirt. You can buy them fairly frequently, at least in the States you can. I know everywhere else they become quite expensive. I'd have to say again, just out of no better answer, comfort.
Okay, what does a hairstyle of a person express for you?
Just as much as their clothing or sneakers. Bad hair is definitely not terribly interesting. Not that I think there's any one haircut, because it does have to do with someone's facial features. But you can tell a lot by someone's haircut.
Good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.
There's no helicopter. Aber sag doch mal weiter.
Okay, Haus, das reicht. Ja, vielleicht sind wir uns zu weit auseinander, das mag auch sein. Ich bin ganz gespannt, wie weit es so parken ist.
parked? Where are you parked? Yeah.
We just said that